Polestar's huge decline in stock value over the past 2 years can be attributed to a combination of factors that have impacted the company's performance, and you could say investor confidence, as we'll get into in a minute. Hence why they have lost literally 95% of their value from around 2 years ago this month, actually. And that's not the peak value. They actually peaked quite a bit higher than that. That's just, what I wanted to do is pick the most consistent price, the consistent price near their peak that lasted for quite a few months, that price. Polestar missed their delivery target for 2023 significantly. The company aimed to deliver 60,000 vehicles, but then they fell short last year by 10%, just under, of their final estimate for the year, which was they actually sold 54,600 vehicles and they estimated 60,000. That's after starting the year with an estimate of 80,000, and then they adjusted that to 70 and then 60, and then that makes them only 10% off of their last adjustment, basically, which I don't usually see companies do these adjustments like that. That's kind of an interesting thing. Compare this to other brands, and basically, I would argue that it's basically game over for them, because they literally they don't make any money. They're not profitable, and they're asking for funding from the government and handouts, basically. So if I had a Polestar now, I would be concerned that I've got a lot of my money tied up in one, and I would be quite concerned about the decrease in the second-hand car market value that typically follows these situations. And I'm sure, I don't know what the word is, but there is a word that analysts use in this situation, but I can't remember it. If you know it, put it in the comments. The company faced issues with its production ramp up and delivery growth. That's just a part of it. I just don't think their cars were compelling enough, and I think they were looking to corner a specific market of fairly wealthy people, and I don't think that's really helped them. And so that has negatively impacted them, basically, and that's why their stock value is now 19 cents as opposed to $3.70 or 80, I think it was, 2 years ago. Also, the price of Polestar cars, that's quite high, relatively speaking, I think. Even though they've got a bigger battery, it's also a cheaper battery, and it's also the least desirable of the batteries because it has nickel in it, or cobalt in it, which sort of produces oxygen. Much more scary fire. A lot of people are aware of that these days. The type of people that often buy electric cars are in the know. That's a bit of a thing. So they know LFP batteries are good, for example. So comparing Polestar to other brands, literally there's no reason to pay thousands of extra dollars for a Polestar, even though there's a bigger battery with a bigger range, when you could get like a Volvo or a Tesla and get a comparable product for a lot less money, or even you could even say a BYD, and even less money than that, and you're getting a very good car. So they are stunning to look at, and I've loved them since before you could even buy one, and I really do love the way they look, with the exception of the tall back. But other than that, really do like Polestar cars. But it is pretty sad for me to see what is seemingly almost the end of their brand after just a few years. Being a relatively new and still very unprofitable company in this sector, Polestar has been significantly affected by these broader market trends. So, for example, most of the people in the last few years that wanted a Tesla, but they couldn't afford an S, waited for the 3, and then they got a 3. The 3 has gone crazy. The Model Y has gone crazy. BYD are now a big thing. So basically that first run of people in the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years have run out and bought an EV, and now you can go get them for a lot cheaper of a price. So that general demand for the, that sort of price range, from like top-end BYD, Tesla Model 3, Tesla Model Y, Model X, Model S, the people that have that sort of money, they've basically already had that excitement. They've gone out and spent the money. So the BYD was a bit late to the Polestar, a bit late to the game, I think, and also just not too compelling either relative to the other companies, and also asking for more money. So it's party over, I think. I think a lot of them are still selling, but they're not really making any money, and so it's probably not going to stay in business. Polestar announced the need for significant external funding until it can achieve cash flow break-even status. So they're poverty-stricken, basically, which is expected in 2025. The company has taken steps to rework its business plan, a last-ditch attempt, aiming to reduce costs and improve efficiencies. However, the need for substantial funding to sustain operations until the company reaches profitability has likely affected investor sentiment. People know that they're doing pretty bad because they're saying stuff like this publicly. And when they say they might make some money in 2025, they might possibly be just a bit optimistic about 2025. They don't want you to be nervous, but it's probably not 2025. The EV market, really, really competitive. Several really established brands and emerging companies. You know, you could argue that BYD is still emerging simply because outside of China, it is still emerging. It's just emerged in China, but people know what it is. That means they can produce fantastic things and just basically chuck them on a ship and ship them around the world and sell them. They're a really good product, quite finessed, but people don't really know them. So in the UK or Europe and whatnot, people don't know what to expect. But the reality is when you go and sit in a BYD and then drive one, you could think you're in a Volkswagen Golf that's brand new. They're so comparable. They're very, very, very close. The look of the paint and the finish and the driving. It's not what you think. It's not a cheap, crappy Chinese car from a back street in Shanghai. They're very good. They're like the cars coming out of Volkswagen, but they've got BYD written on them. That's how good they are. Because I know a lot of people haven't driven them, but that's how good they are. It's incredible. So Polestar, they really need to innovate, I think, and scale up their efficiency. Basically, just stop faffing around and make some actual money, lower their prices, and actually try and get some cars shifted. Failure to keep up with the competition, I think, is going to lead to reduced investor confidence. People just thinking that they shouldn't be buying, even not just people buying stock for them. That's not their biggest concern. People don't even want to buy their cars because the whole brand is being so tarnished by the image of them just failing, basically. So I'm not an expert in this stuff. But, that's definitely not advice. But clearly, I wouldn't be buying I wouldn't be buying a Polestar car or buying their stock. So these factors combined have likely contributed to the significant decrease in Polestar stock value. I think we all agree. The company's future performance will depend on its ability to address these challenges, improve majorly production and delivery efficiency. Don't just sell the cars and then, you've got to actually make them and then get them to the customer. That all is really important. And they're struggling to even just sell them, to be honest. And whilst the general market is moving from, super expensive luxury cars, and we've seen cars now like the Tesla Model 2 is going to be coming soon. The BYD Dolphin's already here. That's selling like crazy. BYD Seagull, that is also coming to the right-hand drive market. That's confirmed and is going to go in export. So it's not just a China-only car in the next few years. So these people are trying to sell, Polestar. I mean, they're trying to sell expensive cars, and they're hoping that people will still be looking to pay that sort of money. Whilst most people, if I said you could pay 60 grand and get a car equivalent to a Polestar that was going to cost you 80 grand, you'd probably just pay the 60 grand, I think, because that's a big amount of money. So the Polestar 4, that's the new car that's coming out. It's hardly tempting as well when you consider the general build quality isn't as good as it really should be, I think. And I think people can actually tell this if you consider Volvo too. There are elements of the Volvo that's really not fantastic. And I still think it's half decent build quality is what it is. It's half decent, halfway there. But it's not where it should be for sure, and not for that sort of price, I don't think. So what do you all think about the price and the quality of Volvo or Polestar cars? Please put it in the comments below. I always read the comments every day, and I know that by the time I've read the comments, there's a selection of comments on the comments. So that's just quite interesting to read. I genuinely really like the look of Polestar cars, and I think they drive really, really, really nice, even though you can tell they're quite heavy. and every part on it is irreplaceable in the next month, basically. So it does kind of pain me to know just how bad they're doing, because it's pretty tragic, I think. And if there are winners in the world, or in the market, I should say, there must be losers, and I think that's the game that they're in. So, if BYD are winning, Polestar might be losing. That makes sense to me. That's not confusing at all. So let's just look at the cheapest Polestar vehicle. So the Polestar 4, starting at around 60 to 65,000 euro, roughly. The standard battery option is, and the only option, 102 kilowatt hour battery with 94 kilowatt hour being usable. The single motor gets 600 kilometer WLTP, and the dual is 560 WLTP. So realistically, think maybe 500 if you drive careful, I think. Unless you drive at 80 to 90 kilometers per hour, and then I think you could actually get the WLTP, I would imagine, or closer to it if the conditions are right and it's not winter. So if you tick all the options as well, you can pay 78,000 euro for it, which is mental, I think. That's crazy. So for me, I think the biggest issue is the cost to own it over 10 years. But not the cost in money, the cost about worrying if, a stone cracks the windscreen and how long that's going to be until you can fix it. How long does that render the car off the road? I've literally had that happen where I was driving down a road and a truck shooting past the other way, a stone flew off the back of the truck, smacked in the middle of the windscreen. It sounded like a hammer hit the windscreen. It was really bad. The aim of the game is to have a car within, back on the road within the shortest time possible. And I don't want to pay 1,000 euros for a windscreen if I can help it, or 2,000 euro, and wait 6 weeks to have it. I've heard some people have to do that exact thing with a Polestar, so that's literally why I'm mentioning that. It is a bit tough for some people in certain places to get parts for their Polestars, and I imagine in 10 years, with the way things are looking, they're not going to be a commonplace car with loads in the market. It's very much going to be like a Tesla Roadster or something like that. Bit of a stretch. But of course, they're nippy. Even the single motor one has 270 horsepower. The dual motor, 536. And another weak point, I think, for me, and I know for a fact that quite a lot of you think this too, is the NMC battery chemistry, because that basically means fires are noticeably more violent, because when cobalt burns, it produces its own oxygen. The fire just is more ferocious, basically. So they're more of a threat if they go up in like a garage or somewhere like that. But also just the knowledge. I guess also it's a placebo thing, So this behind me is All Powers R600. I've had a few. I've had a Bluetti and a couple of others, and this one. This one has LFP chemistry batteries. This is the one that I would recommend if you are happy with if you just want one that's glitch free and just works really, really well. That has LFP chemistry in it, and it feels brilliant to know that it's not as likely to have a big catastrophic event, or if it did, it's probably not going to be as bad. And it's the same with an electric car. I think having NMC chemistry, you'd have to be a certain sort of person to just not care. I think just knowing this makes a difference for a lot of people. Hence why a lot of people preference LFP chemistry. So if I had to choose between a BYD Seagull or a Polestar, I would definitely get a Seagull. Not only because I'd effectively still have loads of money left in the bank, but it's going to sell in massive numbers, and tires will be cheap. Brake discs are going to be cheap and small. Brake pads will be made. They're going to sell in massive numbers. There's going to be loads in the wreckers' yards. And parts will be literally all over. You won't mind an occasional dent either, I don't think, if you park it in a car park and someone dents it, because it's so I don't know, in euro. What is it in euro now? The BYD Seagull. Let's just go with 10,000 euros, something like that, isn't it? 10 or 12,000 euro. And that's part of its aging process. Cheap cars that get grocery getters, I think they're called, aren't they? They are collecting dents for years, and you don't really want to spend 600 euro to fix a dent on a car like that, because it's not really a show car. It's made to just be pretty at first and then age. Cars like a Polestar, I think, are destined to live a different life, I think, kind of like a Tesla Roadster, I guess, or when you buy a fancy a nice new electric car that's like a lot of money, it's less likely to just be left with a couple of dents on it. You might think about fixing the dents. So, rant over anyway, I think. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you're all having a really nice weekend. And I think for some reason, this last couple of days, I've noticed a lot of quiet in my office here. A lot of calm and quiet. I've not listened to music, anything like that. It's just beautiful and still. It's lovely. And I hope you're all finding a similar experience this weekend. Just having a bit of a break from life, because it's kind of stressful these days, isn't it? So feel free to chat in the comments, ask questions. If you ask me a question, I'll get back to you, or just say some stuff. It doesn't matter what it is. So thank you for your time. Thank you for watching.